Don't call it a comeback! The video game industry has irrevocably changed. Gone are the days where a game would simply release, and that would be the end of the discussion. You either liked it or you didn't. Nothing would be patched, nothing would be added. That was the complete experience. Nowadays, games can be patched, they can be added onto, modded, they can be expanded with DLC. And this brings about some shortcomings, some, let's call them issues, with modern gaming, and direction and design. That feels like a lot of games get shipped out in lazy, unfinished states because developers and publishers understand and are cognizant of the fact and the reality that they are capable of changing it in the future. But we can understand that and have a nuanced discussion about this whole phenomenon sweeping the games industry right now. And that is the redemption arc. Some games, for whatever combination of reasons, whether it's greed, time management, incompetence, for whatever reason, can come out and are just in bad states. They can be buggy, glitchy, they just missed the mark, design decisions that are just absolutely baffling, and it's an unfortunate reality of the games industry, and a lot of the times blame can be drawn up to just basic greed or crunch culture. However, sometimes crap happens. You're not gonna bat 1,000 all the time. Mistakes will happen, and sometimes bad games just come out. But whereas before, once a game came out and was just bad, it would be ridiculed and we moved on, well, now they can actually redeem themselves and actually make a comeback here. We've had a few big success stories over the last few years in regards to this unique phenomenon with modern gaming. And there are absolutely worries and concerns about what precedents this can set. However, I do think there is something inherently good about the idea that, hey, you know that game you dropped a lot of money on? Well, we can fix it. It shouldn't have come out in the initial state, but we can try and redeem ourselves. And in my opinion, there are three main games that fall into this category, where on release, they just missed the mark, for whatever reason. Whether it's false advertisement, incompetence, bad decision-making, greed, crunch culture, not enough time, whatever. For whatever reason, these games came out in piss-poor positioning, are ridiculed and laughed at, accordingly so, by the way, but over time, redemption. Final Fantasy XIV, No Man's Sky, and the latest case, apparently, Cyberpunk 2077. And I'm gonna focus mostly on Cyberpunk in this video. And a bit of a disclaimer, I haven't played the game, so I'm not gonna talk to the inherent quality of Cyberpunk 2077, and what they did specifically to fix the game, from what I hear. But I want to talk about the game overall, and I want to talk about preconceptions, hype, and I want to talk about the game as a whole and what Phantom Liberty can represent going into the future. Because I am a fan of CD Projekt Red. I loved The Witcher 2 and I loved The Witcher 3. Those are two games that I put in the highest of echelons when it comes to RPGs. They have excellent gameplay, storytelling, and moment-to-moment decision-making. They are fun, engrossing, and, well, captivating to behold. Cyberpunk 2077, when it was first announced and up to its release, had a lot of hype because these are the people that made The Witcher 3. We know they can do these grandiose games, and you're telling me they're going to do a game in the style of a Cyberpunk game, which for whatever reason kind of feels like woefully underrepresented as an aesthetic in AAA gaming nowadays. So we have a trusted developer on call for this, who are going to make a game with scale, with decision-making, with variable branches and paths that you can walk, and gameplay that seems fun and dynamic. Sign me up. This looks incredible. People were hyped over the moon for this game to come out. And when it did, performance issues... Really, it was the performance issues that, dominated the entire dialogue surrounding the game. But from everything that I've seen from gameplay and reviews, the game also had a bunch of systemic issues, design choices in key locations that's just kind of absolutely baffling, whether it's from the mechanics of the game or the story, or for whatever reason. The game itself came out in a state that didn't live up to the hype. And for whatever specific reason that is, or for whatever specific reason you as an individual may have liked or disliked the game, the public perception surrounding Cyberpunk 2077 was that it was a cataclysmic failure. A perpetual black eye upon the visage of CD Projekt Red. And a failure so great, some even worried about the future of of the company. That was how big of a game Cyberpunk 2077 was hyped up to be, and how big of a letdown it turned out to be. And it just kind of seemed like across the board the game had issues no matter where you looked. There was some things to write home about and be happy with, but on the whole, it just was plagued by systemic issues. Enemy variety, storytelling, cinematography, mechanics with the police system. Again, I can't tell you my first-hand accounts because mine first-hand accounts don't exist. But I'm talking about the perception to the game here. So my own individual opinion here is irrelevant. Because we are talking about a narrative spanning the games industry. An overarching saga that people have been following for years at this point. Because Cyberpunk 2077 could have gone into the night. They could have hung up their hat and kept their breath instead of taking it. And if you remember that meme, you know good comedy. A game that lived up or had so much potential and hype surrounding it. Even freaking Keanu Reeves was in the game. Everyone loves Keanu. I love Keanu. Who doesn't? Let's be honest there. Keanu Reeves, CD Projekt Red, a Cyberpunk-esque game? What was there not to love? The hype was through the moon. It all came crashing down, and they could have just let it be. Moved back to the Witcher and hoped that the next game could redeem their reputation. That's not what happened, though. What happened was, well, they got busy with patches. 1.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 would eventually roll around, alongside an anime adaptation of, well, not an adaptation, but an anime surrounding a storyline that could take place before the game. It was called Edgerunners, Cyberpunk Edgerunners. And the funny thing, the anime took off. People loved this freaking thing. They loved it so much. And they loved it so much that people wanted to experience more Cyberpunk. So they looked back to the ostracized sheep of the gaming industry at that point. Cyberpunk 2077. It had received some new patches since launch. How bad could it be? Well, it turned out the game had been making some significant changes and overhauls over the course of a time, improving and implementing on key features in certain locations that built up over time to make an experience that was, from all accounts, seemingly better than what it had been before. Wasn't perfect by any means, but it was way better than what it was. And for a lot of people, that was enough. A big DLC surrounding Cyberpunk 2077 was always in the works. It was a known entity. But when Phantom Liberty was announced and its features and characteristics really elaborated on, people started to realize, hold on, we may be witnessing a comeback situation here. A story in the making. This could be Patriots Falcons in the Super Bowl. Because sure, the performance issues were largely cleaned up from my understanding, but remember, Cyberpunk 2077 had issues stemming from nearly every aspect of the game. It would need systemic, foundational overhauls to the formula that was Cyberpunk 2077 to put it into the heights of the hype before release. And well, what did they announce? In the new Ways to Play trailer, a dangerous new district, so new location on the map, dozens of new story quests and gigs, which are like side quests, vehicle combat and mounted weaponry, a revamped police system, combat AI overhaul, endless dynamic events and missions, redesigned cyberware and perks, which is like your progression throughout the game, and the tools you would have access to. All new relic skill tree and abilities, again, similar kind of thing there. Increase the level cap, that's whatever. 100 plus new items, weapons, cyberware, and fashion. Those foundational changes that the game needed, those core elements, that key foundation that needed to be overhauled, well, it was getting overhauled. And you can still make the argument that Cyberpunk 2077 should have never released in the state that it was released in. And I'll absolutely 100% of the time agree with you. The release of Cyberpunk 2077 was a freaking tragedy. It should never have been greenlit in that state. However, I do not agree with the conspiracy theory that some people like to take part in, that games deliberately release in crappy states so that they can get good PR later on for fixing it. I don't know the calculus myself. I don't know the cost sales analysis. I just can't imagine that this reality would be more profitable for CD Projekt Red rather than the game just releasing in this state day one and building off of that initial hype. Because from everything that I'm reading and hearing, the changes that Cyberpunk 2077 have made are not just fluff. They aren't just filler. They aren't just putting sprinkles in a pile of crap and calling it a GG. They're completely upending certain key structures and systems that were inherently flawed and laying a new foundation in its wake. Now, whether or not this pans out remains to be seen, but the player count is seemingly in a vastly more healthy state for the game than it was before. And I think one of the most disappointing aspects of Cyberpunk 2077 was always the fact that it was CD Projekt Red, because people know they could do better. You put out The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 was not a fluke. That game, that level of excellence, cannot happen by accident. You have to have talent, you have to have imagination, you have to have an image, a vision for the future. It just simply wasn't realized for Cyberpunk 2077 on launch. So where does that leave us? Well, the future of Cyberpunk 2077 remains to be seen. It is my understanding that this is the final DLC for Cyberpunk 2077, but with the current state of the games industry, never say never. We know CD Projekt Red has multiple Witcher projects in the works, but personally, I'm kinda glad that they didn't leave Cyberpunk 2077 to rot. And it seems like they did some good work with Phantom Liberty. So what does this mean overall? I think there is an argument to be had that some developers or publishers are willing to utilize the fact that they can patch the game post-launch and add stuff post-launch so that they don't have to give 100% for launch. That a few bugs can exist or features incomplete, and that they can be added post-launch. And I think that is a negative trend that is happening in the games industry. It is a trend that deserves to be called out whenever it happens, and to be brought into the light. I do think this is a double-edged sword, though, because there is another edge to this. Games that would once be relegated to the dustbin of ancient history can now be resurrected. Care can be put back into the game, and something new can be born again. We've had that happen for Final Fantasy XIV, which has become the pillar for Square Enix at this point. We've had that happen for No Man's Sky, which is clawing its way back after one of the most cataclysmic launches of any video game ever. And we're seeing that happen all over again for Cyberpunk 2077. And I think it's okay to root for a success story, to root for a comeback. Because while the game didn't release in an acceptable state, sometimes second chances are warranted, even if they never should have needed one to begin with. And if it can turn a bad game into a good one for the consumer, well, I think that's a win. Plain and simple. Sometimes, questions that may seem complex and multi-tiered and nuanced can sometimes be answered, quite satisfyingly so, with a very simple response. And with that, I will bid you all an adieu for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. Leave a comment down below with your impressions of Cyberpunk 2077. Did you play it on launch? What did you think of it? Did you think it was as bad as people said, or not as bad as people said? Or did you even love it or hate it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions. And have you played Phantom Liberty? And do you think I should play Phantom Liberty? What are your thoughts, your impressions, your opinions? I would love to hear your perspective and hear your stories. But please, while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great day. Go play some video games if you can, and as always, I'll see you all next time. And hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload and stream in the future. Follow me on Twitch at YouTube yeah, got that wrong. Twitch.tv/JMullsG. Follow me over on Twitter at JMullsG. And hey, you're already here on my YouTube. Might as well leave a like and subscribe, right? So thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe. Have a great day. Go play some video games if you can. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.